Okay, what up, ladies and gents? It's your favorite Asian robot right here. Hopefully your favorite official content creator for the First Descendant. And today I'm going to talk about multi-hit, all right, how it works, and why I think it's not very good. If I am wrong, please prove me wrong in a video. Please, explain how you arrived at calculations and all that. I'll happily watch because I want to know if I'm wrong or if genuinely multi-hit just sucks and everything that I've said is correct, because basically what I've been investigating does not look good for multi-hit. All right, I've got some dummy math later on to show you guys and all that kind of stuff. But first, let's try and understand what multi-hit is. First of all, multi-hit, we're going to use the Malevolent hand cannon to explain this, but multi-hit is a new stat that's been added to all guns, all right, in the form of multi-hit damage. This is a multiplier that effectively tacks on a fractional addition of your damage. So what do I mean by that? In this case, the multiplier is 0.2, 20% effectively. If your shot were to deal, for example, 100 damage, right, then 20% of that, okay, which is the 0.2 there, will be added on as additional damage. That's your multi-hit. Your shot hits twice, the second one being at 20% of the damage that you initially dealt, okay? That's multi-hit in a nutshell. One bullet hits twice. This is different from the concept of multi-shot, which appears in several other games, all right, where multi-shot means that for one shot, you shoot two bullets. This can be drastically different because multi-shot is a second other bullet, which can proc an additional effect. Here in this game, we don't have multi-shot. We've got multi-hit. Multi-hit is simply an additional hit. So it's like one bullet hitting twice, that's it. It does not proc additional effects, and I'll happily showcase that to you guys shortly. But now that you understand what multi-hit is, take note that any gun does not have a base multi-hit chance. There's no base multi-hit chance. In fact, multi-hit chance comes from modules, and it's additive. What does that mean? It means that whatever multi-hit chance you get, that's your total chance. So here, if you use multi-piercing trigger, which has multi-hit chance of 15%, and multi-percussion sight, which has multi-hit chance of 25%, my total chance of a multi-hit, as per the tooltip, is 40%. If I fire a shot, 40% chance that it will hit twice. That's it. And when I say hit twice, the second hit is at a multiplier of 0.24, which happens to be multi-hit damage plus 20%. The multi-hit damage is not additive, unlike multi-hit chance. It's multiplicative. 20% of 20%, okay, is another 4%, right? So that's how you arrive at the multiplier of 0.24, which you're seeing down there on the left-hand side, okay? 0.04 is the 20% of the 0.2, yeah? So this means that even if you were to increase multi-hit damage by a huge amount, say like 100%, all I would go from is a fraction of 0.2 to 0.4, which doesn't actually increase my damage by that much. This is very different from crits and weak points, whereby if I were to increase, like, look, my weak point damage multiplier is 2.5. This means that my one bullet does 100 damage. If I hit a weak point, that bullet will deal 250 damage instead. And if I were to put in weak point sight, okay, this is then the increase of 35% is on the 2.5 here, which leads to a much larger multiplier of 3.375. All right. So this is very different from how multi-hit works. And this is why multi-hit does not get as much value as crits or weak points. So unless the gun does not already have crit damage, it doesn't seem like it's useful to even have multi-hit in the game. Now, this is all well and good, but this is all theory. How does it actually work when you shoot the gun? Let's take a look. If I were to shoot the gun right now, and we'll aim for its head, okay, that first hit didn't. Pay attention to the yellow number, okay? Don't pay attention to the other numbers because that's all the other effects, all right? So pay close attention again. There. Did you see that was a 354,000 and 85,000? Again. Again. None. 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 Multi-hit. None. Multi-hit. Do you see that? So I'm getting about roughly 25% extra damage for my multi-hit, which works together with the weak point damage, elemental damage, all that. Sounds good on paper, not really great if you already have criticals, because it essentially functions the same as crits, but instead of being a multiplier like crit, it's a fractional number, okay? And of course, it doesn't proc any additional effects. If you look at the perforator, for example, the unique ability of the perforator is that it will spawn one extra explosive scanner if you hit a weak point, right? So if I were to trigger a multi-hit with this particular weapon, I should theoretically, assuming that it procs a unique effect, I should see two explosive scanners drop from the target, right? This does not actually happen. So just to show, I've put multi-piercing trigger, multi-percussion sight. This gives me a 40% multi-hit chance, and my multi-hit damage, unfortunately, this gun only has 0.1 times as a multiplier. So the 20% that I get here becomes 0.12 times. So I get 12% instead of 10%. Whoop-de-doo, 2% increase in my damage if I multi-hit. Okay, so let's try it out now. Do you see that I hit it? No multi-hit. No multi-hit. There's a multi-hit, but only one scanner spawn. Let's move around so I can show this even better. Okay, that was a full crit. One. Full crit, sorry. Yep, there was a multi-hit, but only one scanner spawned. Unless I'm wrong. Okay, I'm going to try and go a little faster. Yep, only one scanner spawned. Okay, multi-hit, but only one scanner spawned. All right. So that should serve as proof that it does not trigger the unique ability. If I'm wrong on this, please, by all means, prove it to me. Showcase it to me in a clearer manner. I would love to see it, but it does not proc... The multi-hit does not proc the unique ability. Only the initial bullet procs the unique ability. So this is another limitation of the multi-hit. So you're effectively not getting that much damage. What happens if we math it out? What happens if we math it out? All right, let's math it out. Now, these are dummy numbers. These are dummy numbers. They are not actual numbers. We are just going to use this as an explanation. I cannot emphasize this enough because some people say, excuse me, but your numbers show this and that. I was like, this is not a damage calculation. I'm not making a damage calculator. I'm showing you the multiplicative math with dummy numbers. These are dummy numbers, okay? Okay, great. All right, so now let's go through step by step and show you how I arrived at my conclusion. If we take a look at the firearm attack, okay, oops, sorry, let me just cut the music so that you guys can enjoy this better. If we take a look at, ooh, and why is my screen slightly off to the side? Sorry, moving, okay. If we take a look at firearm attack, let's set it at 50,000, all right? I've got three variables here. Standard, meaning that this one has no multi-hit, this one only has multi-hit, and this one is a combination of what we've seen before and multi-hit, all right? So let's take a standard gun. Let's say the gun does 50,000 damage as an example. This gun has a critical hit rate of 20% and a critical multiplier of 2, okay? The weak point multiplier for this particular gun, just as an example, is 1.5. Some of you may actually recognize the gun whose stats are loosely based on this. But anyway, this particular gun does not have any base multi-hit chance, and the multi-hit damage of the gun is just set at 0.2. All right, so in this particular case, since there's no multi-hit chance, multi-hit damage doesn't factor in. So if we were to take the average damage of the gun, assuming that the gun's 50,000 attack crits 20% of the time, and there's a multiplier of 2, your average damage is going to go from 50,000 per shot to 70,000 per shot. If we were to then add in the weak point multiplier of 1.5, we would take, and assuming it crits, of course, so we're taking the average damage of the attack plus crit, and we add in the weak point of 1.5, this reaches a number of 105,000, okay? Then, on top of that, we add the multi-shot, which in this case, there is none, so it should be the same. This number with the calculation should be exactly the same as attack plus crit plus weak spot because there's no effective multi-shot. Now, for the multi-hit example, I took the stats of the Malevolent, all right? In this particular case, let's say your Malevolent does 50,000 damage, right? It's got a crit hit rate of 1%, crit multiplier is 1, so completely irrelevant. Even if you crit, you're not gonna get any increase, okay? You're not going to get any realistic increase. So in this particular case, oh, sorry, there's a slight problem with the calculation here. This should actually be nil. Sorry about that. I'll just fix that real fast. This should be nil because it's additive. I didn't want to skew the numbers too much. Okay. In this particular case, if you were to attack and crit, you would still do, even at your 1% crit rate, you would still do 50,000 because you're not getting any additional damage from a multiplier of 1. Okay, that's the minimum. Now, if you were to hit a weak spot, though, because this gun has 2.5 weak spot damage, you would get a whopping 125,000 damage. And if you were to multi-hit off that damage, your damage increases by only 5,000 on average. Based on the multi-hit chance and the multi-hit damage, your average damage only goes up by 5,000. Okay, now, at first glance, this looks a lot better than a gun that has a crit multiplier of 2, weak point damage multiplier of 1.5. Holy cow, I'm dealing like 20,000 more damage, right? Well, yes, except that if you were to equalize the weak point multiplier of all the guns, The gun that triggers critical and weak point outclasses the gun that triggers multi-hit. Why? Because assuming all variables are the same, okay, and I know they're not, but assuming all variables are the same, this critical hit acts as an additional multiplier that drastically affects the damage, much more so than a fractional bit of damage from the multi-hit. All right, even if you were to combine the two in the combo tree with the same weak point damage across the board, okay, your additional increase from adding multi-shot in is literally just an increase of 7,000 damage on average, okay? So let's play around with the numbers a little bit. Okay? Let's assume that every gun has the same weak point multiplier as the Malevolent. But this gun has a 20% crit hit rate with a crit multiplier of 2. We're not going to touch or modify that. What is going to happen? How much multi-hit chance are you going to get? Let's add as much multi-hit chance as possible, just as an example, and put it at 97. This still cannot even equate this thing with a critical hit rate at base. This is with a 97% chance of multi-hit chance. 97% chance of multi-hit with multi-hit damage. Let's add in the fact that it might have a multiplier. Even then, still does not equate. Did you see that it still doesn't even equate to 175,000? What if we were to focus solely on the multi-hit damage then? Okay, so let's give it a base chance of, say, 15%. And then let's focus solely on the multi-hit damage and take the multi-hit damage. Let's say we managed to, we double the multi-hit damage. Okay, we managed to double it. Here's what you get, because here the multi-hit chance is low. Even if we were to increase this multi-hit chance by another 50%, bring it up to 65%, you're still nowhere close, assuming the same multipliers to something that's actually critting with only a 20% chance of crit. Do you see where all this is going? Now, both crit and multi-hit will improve the damage of elements. Your elemental damage will be improved both ways, and now your elemental damage is improved by weak points as well. But do you sort of see the problem here? Multi-hit is not that great, and it takes a lot of effort to even make multi-hit equate to a critical hit at a much lower percentage. Now, critical hit chance is multiplicative, so in that sense, multi-hit may have theoretically an advantage. But we all know that there are several characters like Haley, Enzo, who can bring critical hit rate up in an additive manner, therefore reaching almost 100% crit rate with guns. If you think about it, a 100% crit rate, if you were to just change this crit rate to 100%, watch what happens to the numbers. Oops, sorry. Turn it into 2,100%. If I had a 100% crit rate, say with Haley, and my gun has a critical multiplier of 2, weak point multiplier of 2.5, I'm still dealing 375,000 damage. Even if I were to lower this weak point multiplier down to 1.5, I'm still completely outclassing a gun that only has weak point and multi-hit. Even if I were to increase multi-hit to 100% chance, oops, sorry, that's 100 times, 100% chance, at most I reach this number, and this is with multi-hit damage also increased by 100%. Let's take multi-hit damage all the way up to, considering the baseline of 0.2, you'd have to multiply the base of 0.2 by 400% to even get it equal. Do you see how all these numbers work? And this is with a much higher weak point multiplier. Same base damage assuming across all the guns. When you start playing around with the numbers like this, you start to see that multi-hit takes so much more effort to be equal to crit. So the only reason the Malevolent is strong is because of the weak point chance, not because of the multi-hit. You don't hit the weak point with other weapons, at least you're still getting the critical hit multiplier. But here, you're not. So I don't know if I'm wrong. You know, please tell me if I'm wrong. You can test it for yourself in the damage range in the lab. But thus far, I have not been impressed with multi-hit. Multi-hit to me would only work on a gun that has very high weak point, and even then, no chance of a crit. If the gun has even the slightest chance of a critical, and assuming the multiplier is good enough, you're much more likely to be better off using that particular gun rather than a multi-hit gun. And if you were to take a look at the multi-hit variables on several other weapons that are not the Malevolent, let's take a look at some of our favorite guns right now. The Last Dagger. It's somewhere around here. There. The last dagger has a multi-hit damage of 0.06. That means 6%. Every time you trigger a multi-hit, you just got a 6% chance. You're dealing just 6% of the initial hit's damage. Okay? That's what the last dagger can do. Let's take a look at some other weapons. Where's Greg's? Do I have Gregos here? I'm pretty sure I have Gregos here somewhere. Gregos! Grego has a multi-hit damage of 0.68, which is really nice because it is a burst rifle. But here's the other problem. You'd have to reduce your crit damage, and Grego's has a crit damage multiplier here. And we all know that the multi-hit cannot actually trigger an additional unique effect. So if I were to compromise any of these stats for more multi-hit chance, I wouldn't. I would probably just increase the base multi-hit chance with that one module, giving me a small chance of dealing some extra damage, and I would leave it at that because it's just extra raw damage on top. You know, that's what I would be getting, and that's what I would use with Greg's Reverse Fate if I wanted to. Because as far as I know, there are no cores and no weapon readjustment rolls that can increase multi-hit. So we're kind of stuck with this. So if you guys find a way to make multi-hit work on some weapons, good. Let me know. But so far, I have not been impressed, and this is how multi-hit works. This is what I've discovered. So yeah, let me know what you think, okay? Because I'm stumped. I would really love to hear what you think. I would really like to know more. All right, if you guys can figure something out, please, please, please tell me, guide me. I want to know, because in my test right now with the Malevolent, I'm not impressed. That being said, please, if you guys can find a weapon, you guys can find something that is going to give you an advantage with multi-hit, please tell me, because I want to know, and I'd love to help share and spread the knowledge as well. All right, now, big thank you to everybody that's been supporting me this time around. Okay, I'm just going to quickly... Oops, sorry, I just realized that I'm at the wrong page. Let me just get... I want to thank my top supporters, but this is the wrong list. Sorry, this is the unupdated list. I want to put in the updated list, which is actually here. Come on, browse. Let's go. Updated listing. Yes. Okay. Okay, so that's the updated listing right there. Thank you to March's top supporters, top tipper CG Mayhem, top tipper Jesse Davis, top super chatter Lawbreaker. Top super chat list includes George Tishon, Sir Tommy, Jonathan Terry, D. Russ, Matthias M. Top channel membership gifter is open. Membership gifter list is open. Thank you very much for supporting my channel. I hope you guys enjoy this. Let me know if you guys can do anything with multi-hit. If my conclusions are bogus, please tell me. I will not get offended or anything, because I'm pretty sure that this is how it works and this is what I've seen. So, you know, there you go. Catch you later. And let me know in the comments. See ya.